December income statement and profit and loss. Um, we're going to talk about a bunch of reserve approvals. And I did add a slide in here to talk about what's the difference between a reserve and an operating expense, because there's some confusion, right? Because when you read the slide deck, you sit there and go, looks like we're strapped for cash, we're low on cash, but we're doing all these projects, right? And you sit there and go, well, why would I do these projects if I'm strapped for cash? They come out of two very separate independent sources for us. One's a reserve, one's an operating. And I'll just go through that at a high level. Most people may already know what it is. I just figure I'd hit it again because it's a big question that people have. Then we're going to talk about some of the things that happened in this year, the significant events, financial highlights, some of the things that we did. We're going to talk about property insurance. That's the hot topic that's on everybody's mind. I did add a slide in here after I talked to a couple people of what we're actually doing to get better rates on our insurance, and we do have some progress that we can talk about. We'll go through our budget, and then we'll then vote on our budget, and we'll close the meeting. So lots to cover. At that, we'll move. I did have meeting etiquette. I sent that out. Last time we did a Teams meeting, and what was happening, we were getting lots of interruptions, right? It was very difficult. Like the people in the room here raise their hand. You know, it's easy to call on people, but when you have people on the phone interrupting, it's really hard. We're live broadcasting, so they can hear everything we're saying. They're going to have to write in their questions. And we are taping it, so this is going to be recorded, and we are going to post the recording so that people that were not able to see it, or if you want to go back and refresh your memory of what was said, you can go back and look at it. Okay, this is the president's update. The folks here at the table, I just want to make sure, you know, we give them a big thank you for everything that they've done. We've, you know, done an awful lot of stuff this year, and it's not just the board members that chip in. You know, we have, you know, Miguel, who's on the staff. We have Dave Parr. We have Diana, and you know, one of the things that I can tell you about my experience so far with everybody, whether you're volunteered or you're paid, people are putting in a lot of extra time, and they're not being asked to put it in. You know, we have a 2 o'clock emergency. You know, Miguel picks up his phone, and he's here helping bail out a house, right? This guy here, Phil, he's like, everybody's got his personal number, right? Luckily, you haven't gotten mine yet, right? They call this guy, you know, and this guy is like, you know, eventually he calls me and says, Ron, we got to do something here. And then you have the whole team here that's been doing an awful lot, right? And then we have, you know, Carol, who comes in every Friday. We have other volunteers. We have the community club. I got introduced to a few members of the community club earlier this year, and they showed me a bunch of the stuff that they're doing. I couldn't name all the names. I mentioned a couple in here, but I can tell you that they do an awful lot for this place, and there's other people that keep this place going. So I'm done with the thank yous. Oh, this guy here, I did mention him here, the community channel, all the volunteer stuff, and, yeah. But yeah, he was here at 5 o'clock this evening with me trying to get set up. So
can we give a round of applause for everybody?
yeah, let's do that. Okay, I have one more thank you and one more announcement. Many people here may know that one of our board members is decided not to run again next year. He's been a board member for a number of years, but not only did he decide not to run, he decided that he's going to move on and live life and play golf and travel all over the world. Or Jim Rendell is going to be moving on now. He's hoping that his house won't sell quick enough so he can be here for the season, but rumor has it that people are already knocking at the door. So I wanted to thank. I worked with Jim just a couple of years, right? So I know Joe has worked with him for a number of years. A number of people have here as well. So I don't have enough history to really roast him. I mean, I would like to, but I don't. The only thing I can tell you is the guy is a pretty inspirational guy. If you listen to what he's gone through in his life, his surgery, and then the things that he's gone through as a coach, right? All the things that he's done, You know, I think he was part of the mob in Boston. I think he was doing something there. But you know, he's been a pleasure to work with for me. I can tell you that. He's bailed me out on a number of cases. And so what I wanted to let you know is that we decided to get Jim something. The board members and a couple other people decided to chip in to get you. It's heavy. Watch out.
Oh, that'll go to good use.
Yeah.
Well, a Grey Goose.
Was that a drink of White Vulture?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Titleist, Tanucci. I don't have to borrow your balls anymore.
Judge,
Yeah, so,
Thank you.
Ron asked me, I wanted to have my voice go that way, right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Don't walk behind
Don't walk behind me?
Yeah, you'll knock it off.
Ron asked me to put a few words together regarding Jim leaving our community. We did talk with him today, and I'm glad he's leaving. He took our money, but it was only $4 today. We took $6 from him last week. Anyhow, Jim Rendell, I know him as a husband, a father, a grandfather, a board member, and a close friend. You might not know he's a past high school and college athlete. After ending his own athletic pursuits, Jim became a basketball and a girls volleyball coach up in Massachusetts. Not only did he become a coach, his teams won state championships in Massachusetts. Jim was also a teacher and later athletic director in the Massachusetts school system. He later on, Ron alluded to this, ran his own lobster business in the Boston area. That's where the mob was involved. When I was president, Jim was our vice president, and he now serves as our treasurer. I mentioned his background because I think it highlights the skills and experience that Jim has brought to our board. Our community has benefited significantly from not only the utilization of Jim's skills, but also the passion and professionalism exhibited by Jim as he exercised those skills as a board member and on our behalf. I know how much he involved himself in some of the major ongoing responsibilities of the board, including but not limited to the lawn maintenance, use, and the property beautification, the budget planning, especially Jim has passionately concerned himself with our reserve fund requirements. He also has been called upon and very professionally handled issues such as back payment of dues and the need for face-to-face discussions. Jim, we are thankful and grateful for the time you have expended on our behalf and for the benefits that we have derived as a result of those efforts. Jim, job well done. Thank you and best of luck.
I'm just going to say one thing about the gentlemen at this table. These guys are putting in a ton of work. There's a lot of work that has to be done. If you have any expertise in any of those fields or anything you can help, the board can use your help. And again, like Ron said, there's a lot of people that are helping out. If you have the ability, if you have the time, if you have the urge, please help out as much as you can. It just benefits us all. And I'm proud of what I've done here, but I'm also proud of this community. I really am. It's a great place to live. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, we'll jump now into old business. So the lighting project, I think most people can see the progress that's been made there. We have installed 130 new lights. We replaced 30 light poles. We've now going back and reinforcing certain poles that are not well secured, so we're reinforcing those. We're continuously upgrading the wiring. We just had 2 more that burned out that we had to fix. We're going to add 4 additional lights to dark areas that we've identified. So Al going around that corner in there, and then I think there's a couple up on this corner here. So if anybody in particular sees a dark area that they think needs to be lit, please let our office know. We don't have unlimited funds for this, but we do have enough left. We were able to negotiate a pretty good deal on the lights. We got $50 off of each light once we were able to contact the actual manufacturer. So we got the lead from Vito. They paid full price, $150 a light. We paid $50 less when we got into it. So sometimes it's good to not be first in. And then Miguel actually found a way to negotiate a lower rate on the poles that we replaced. So so overall we did come in under. So we have enough left to do the poles. And the one thing that I'm going to bring up tonight to the board is we do have enough to upgrade the lights on the back of our laundry rooms, and it would be a total cost of about $2,000. It can't be $1,700 and change, but I put it at $2,000. That will still bring us in under the $30,000 that was approved previously. The lights that are in section 3 that they put on their laundry rooms are very bright. We did try a sampling of them, and the immediate response that I got was way too bright.
Yeah.
Vito told me that they're painting them, they're putting tape on them, right? So we're going to try to pick something that's looks good, gives a little bit of brightness, but not like it makes the BC unit, turn into daylight all night long, right?
Well, you're not allowed to make it that bright anyway.
Yeah.
It's an ordinance.
So we'll work on that, and so I'd like to make a motion that we continue and replace those lights and add it to the project.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next is the trimming project. The only thing I'm going to put, there's a list on here, you can't probably see it on TV. Sort of the way you should look at it, if you have plantings that are touching the building, making a runway for insects and bugs to get into the building, trim them back, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to come around and we'll start trimming what was not trimmed, but we'll do it in a very respectful way. We won't come in and hack. If we're going to cut down a bigger tree or something like that, we'll work with you. There's, a lot of people have put a lot of pride into their landscaping. We'll make sure that we don't do it in a way that it's going to, be like we just came through and hacked you up, right? But we want to keep the plants off the building because it's a runway for termites, rodents, and others to get to the building. Plus it creates moisture on our buildings, which then creates rot and other things. So if you have it, that's the best way to get ahead of it.
Some people have said they needed some help, so there's a few people, we said we'll come help.
Yep.
Diane, we'll get a hedge thing, we'll go over it, we'll help them out. We'll do it one at a time.
Yeah. So if you have any questions on this, again, contact the office directly.
And some of the people have trimmed their stuff, so.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
So, this list is infirm, this is just from when I went around.
Yep. So we did have a request, and at the last board meeting, we said we would look to see if we can get FHA approved. If we're FHA approved, the key benefit to this place is that as a resident, you would be able to qualify for a reverse mortgage. And so many here would like to be able to tap into that equity to be able to continue to live here, right? And to also be able to offset some of their costs. Now, we've gone through and we filled out the application process, and we've already gotten our initial feedback, and it's the same feedback that we got the last time it was done by Jan and others, that for us to qualify for this, we will need to allow in our bylaws the ability to rent. And I know that's not it wasn't a very popular idea way back when, but with the changing times, with the financial stress, with everything that's happening, I can tell you that there's only two sections that don't rent. We're one of the two that don't rent. The others all do have renting clauses. And you can make renting clauses fairly restrictive, right? It does add administrative burden to the office. It does, create, it will and can create other issues that come with it, but there's also can be some benefits to it. So all I'm going to propose on this is that we establish a committee to actually go into this in more detail. But if we're going to get, we have to have a quorum vote, which means we have to have 75% of the residents vote yes. And we can do proxy voting here now, which means we can vote by email. So again, it's possible to get everybody to vote on this. I think we just want to have a committee to go through all the pros and the cons and what would the options be, like what would we propose, and we'll bring that to a board meeting, we'll present it, we'll get more feedback, and if at that point in time we feel like there's enough consensus that this is a good idea, we'll bring it forward for a resident vote. The laundry room plugs, there's a number of residents that have plug-in hot water heaters. I think it was Tom that was here a couple meetings ago, brought them forward and showed the potential fire hazard. So what we did is we went to all the buildings and we did an inventory. If you have a plug-in hot water heater, it needs to be hardwired. We did hear that there's an electrician local that's working and doing it for $75 each, not the $250, not the $350. Diana has that contact in the office. Call the office. And again, we'll work with everybody on this, but it's something that we're going to have to get done, and I'll talk a little bit more about the electrical inspection that's going to be done for insurance, right? So all these things that are not to code and are to these potential fire hazards impact our ability to get credits and also impact our insurance rates.
And I just want to add one thing. The reason why, Paul, you get your name on the list if you're interested, because the guy did, when he charged $75, he came and did 3. So we want to at least get 3, and, we're not coming here for one. We can get him to come do 3 or 4, it's worth as well.
Okay. I'm going to turn it now over to Jim to cover the results for September, the financial results.
Again, it's all pretty cut and dry. Our revenue was 105,000 roughly, and our expenses were 106, so that's $1,000 over, and that's the trend that we've had the last few months. With all the increases that we've had. And when we go through the budget, you'll see that everything from water to electricity and all of that stuff. Our balance sheets, our pay is in pretty good shape. And I'm going to skip over the reserves unless anybody have it. Our reserves are excellent. As of 11/20, we had over 900,000 in the reserves. And that's spending about 30 grand out of our reserves to do the lightings and do some of the grass and do some of the upgrades that we've done. So we've been using that for improvements and trying to keep our balance sheet, our budget, which Ron will allude to later, more reasonable, which will keep the HOA fees down. And we've been using it again, and we're going to continue to use that in the future when necessary, when we have to. And I'm proud, and Joe, and that our reserves are far better than any of the other associations here. There's one other association that has a little bit more money, but they got roofs to do in 2 years, and that's going to more than wipe them out. And there's other people that have literally fractions of what we have. 10 or 15% of what we have. So we're in really, really good shape. As far as the reserves go, we are also a little bit, we're tight on cash flow. And you'll see that when we're going through. That's one reason we have to use the reserves, and we're very, very tight on our cash flow. We lost $1,200 last month, and we project to lose a little bit more in November. So we are trying to compensate that by getting tighter on our collections, some of the money that's owed us, and, but overall, we got through the year in pretty good shape. We also used, and I'm sure Ron will cover it,
Yep.
what was it?
$75,000.
$75,000 out of our accounts that we had cash available to offset some of our insurance costs last year. So we lost 75 grand, so now we're balancing on thin ice. And we've got to get that ice thick, we've got to develop that, and that's our goal right now on this new budget. So we're really on thin ice as far as the budget goes. We're in excellent shape as far as the reserves go, and we can be proud and happy of that.
Yeah, I think if I were going to just add anything to that statement would be is when you look at whether or not a business is solid or not, it's their total equity. You take your total assets less your total liabilities. So if we had to go out of business today, you know, we would be net positive $356,000 to the positive, right? So therefore, if we had an ultimate emergency, which by statute 718, we could be using our reserves for other than what they've been targeted, we would be able to weather a storm, right? So, you know, again, we're not in a dire shape when it comes to being solid financially. It's the cash flow side of it, and we'll talk a little bit more about what happened and how we're going to manage that. This is an eye chart. Don't expect anybody, but when you get it, you know, if you feel like reading it. So just by a quick show of hands, do people here know the difference between a reserve account and an operating account? Okay, most people do. Okay, so I'll just explain it in very few words. A reserve account is like a bank account you put aside and you say, I'm only going to use this to buy a new car. And I'm not going to use it to pay my electric bills. I'm not going to pay my mortgage with it. I'm not going to buy my food with it, right? That's locked away, right? And so when you go to buy a car, you got enough money in that account to put a good down payment or buy a car. That's a reserve account. And by statute 718, we have to protect that and earmark it for very specific things, whether it's roof, paving, painting, right? And we're not necessarily allowed to commingle those. We have to use them for those things. But it doesn't impact our operating cash. Our operating cash is to run this business, to pay our daily bills, right? So what we did is we adopted a policy last year of any expense over $500 that is going to be a long-term improvement to the grounds, facilities, the buildings, the clubhouse. We are going to take those against our reserves rather than our operating account. So what that allows us to do is lessen the blow on increasing a maintenance fee, is the best way I can say to you, right? It does put a little stress on the reserve accounts, but as you can see, our reserve account is well funded, and as long as we pay attention to what we're going to do in terms of projects and how we spend that, we should be able to weather this storm until we can get through this insurance market crisis, right? Which will have to come to a head at some point. I don't think it's this year. It may be in a year or two from now, but that's the difference between the two. But if you have any questions and if you want to sit down and talk about any of this, you know, please send an email. I'd be happy to. I've already gone through it with a few people, and we'd be happy to sit down and actually go through the details. In terms of new business, as I just mentioned, we're taking these over $500 expenses that we would have normally pushed through operating. They're long-term fixes, and I'll give you an example. We had 2 water mains breaks this year. One was $3,700, the other one was $2,300, right? When you think about the repair, we replaced the water main in the house, right? So the water main now is going to be good for the next 50 years, just like the last one was, right? So that would be considered a reserve expense. So instead of paying for that out of operating, we paid for it out of reserves, right? So what I'm asking for the board to approve is $16,994 for the following items that we had to do that came out of reserves. We replaced 5 laundry room hot water heaters. These are the buildings we did them for. We had to replace an irrigation pump that failed for $1,975. We had our water main upgrades. We had our exterior light repair. So We're continuing to have broken wires. We're having to do retrenching, rewiring. We have new clubhouse lights at the clubhouse. I got to remember what that one's for.
Ones around the
pool.
The pool.
Oh, the
lights
pool.
around the pool outside.
I thought it was part of the other project.
No.
So I just, and then the electrical panel replacement in one building, backflow valve replacements. This is something that's new this year for us. Last year we got out of this. City of Delray, I think Joe and Jim. But this year, I don't know if you've seen them, they've been in every section right now, and they're digging up, and so we have 2 failed units, 2 failed backflows, and we're estimating it's gonna be roughly $1,500 to fix those backflows. And that just keeps the bad water from going into the public water supply is all a backflow is. It's just, we have to have this valve that stops our bad water from going into the public water supply. And then we had other reserves of $6,440. We had a pool ladder we had to replace, and then roof inspections. As part of our insurance renewal, we have to prove to them that our roofs are actually in good standing status. So we had to have a company come in, they did this, and I'll explain more about how this fits into our renewal, right? So I'd like to make a motion that we approve these expenses to be paid for out of the reserves as stated.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So I'm going to just really pause real quick if there is a question on this, because there's a lot of stuff on here. I don't know if anybody has a. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just thank you for getting the roofers out to do the repairs after that crazy storm.
Yeah.
That's me.
Before the next storm.
That's me. I called them up at 8 o'clock in the morning.
That was, like I said, that saved everybody anywhere from.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Yeah, we didn't have to pay for that either.
Well, it was under warranty.
Right.
Contract.
Yeah. Okay, here's a new business that we'll be voting on. Okay, another eye chart, but it's good for you to read and understand. Okay, so we invested $750,000 of our reserve money into high yield CDs, and we're earning on average 5.5%. On those CDs, we're earning in the neighborhood of $27,000 a year. Instead of taking that interest earned on the reserve CDs and putting it back into reserves at this point in time, I'm asking the board if they will vote on actually having that move to the operating account, which will then help us thicken the ice, as Jim said, to give us more wiggle room on our cash, which then that offsets the need to raise our maintenance fees, right? So if you recall, a couple of years in a row, we got $40,000 cash rebate from Blue Stream, right? When you get $40,000 2 years in a row, it doesn't happen again. We don't have another $40,000 coming our way, right? So by now making this vote to take $27,000 out of last year and then allocating 2024, $27,000, we're in essence going to be able to boost our operating cash balances by that amount, which then again decreases the burden on us having to sit there and go, we're gonna have to raise maintenance fees for that piece of it. So, and I think that, yeah. So I just want to propose that to the board. You got to. Oh, you second. All in favor? Okay. Does anybody have any questions on what I just covered? Go ahead.
I understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the future? And I know you have to look at today, but also future and those reserves. All that is going up in price every day we go by. And you know the same situation, roofing is gonna be crazy.
Yep.
And I found out that Boca Raton with Century Village, they were having work done over there and they killed it, stripped them down to nothing. The anticipation was a couple of $1 million for a building, and they wanted 10. And they had bids, and they were all doing the same thing. So the concept is, are we looking in the long run with that reserve, and are we building this?
Yes, we are. We've looked at it very well, and we're in very good shape as far as our roads. Again, we got 900, and we're using the buildings and grounds to improve this, but there's a couple of things that we're looking at into the future. And one of them is we owed 1.5 million, when we had that hurricane hit. We had to do the roofs, we had to do the main, water valves, you know, they put those condoms. You know,
The wrap.
so,
Yeah, the covers, yeah.
so we ended up we took out a loan for 1.5 million.
Right.
We're down to 650. Now, when we took that loan out, we had 300,000 in our reserves. We now have 900,000 in our reserves. That loan is now 650. That loan's gonna be paid off in, I believe it's 6 years?
8.
8 years. So at the end of 8 years, that is a big balloon payment for this association. So if we are close because of inflation, because of anything else, that's gonna be a real, now that's 8 years away, but you're talking about the future. That, the future is when we need roofs, well, that's not for another 15 years. The future is when we need paving again, that's not for another 12 years. With the painting, we're already set, the pool, we're set. You know, so we're in very good shape when the reserves, and we've got that kick coming. It's 8 years away, but if you're talking long-term, that's part of the long-term picture that we're doing it. That's why we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, to keep the HOA fees down.
Or investing
And,
the money.
the other thing is about the reserves. Florida says we have to put 10% of our HOA
Right.
into the reserve. We're putting 10% in, but now we're earning interest on it. Nowhere does it say we have to put the interest in it. So we're gonna take that interest back and hopefully keep our cash.
Yeah, and to answer it, next year, when we're back on more solid ground with our operating cash,
Yep.
we can then revert back to putting that money right back into reserves, right? And we do have to do a reserve study one of these days and update our reserve study, and they'll tell us, an outside vendor will come in and tell us what the actual cost will be to replace things and do that. So it's a good question about, you know, we got to plan for
And
the future.
another thing, Bill, those communities where you mentioned, some of those are very large communities. We're small, you're talking, some of those communities have 5,000 people, 10,000 people.
Yeah, but it's only-
Century, some of those are much larger, they got more buildings.
It's individual
Yes,
buildings.
correct.
It's the building.
Yeah.
And that's the difference there. It's not the entire community.
Right.
It's the building.
I do think there's some reality to what Bill is saying, that there is unknown risk to us.
Right.
Because the state is clamping down hard on HOAs and condominium associations. They're starting with buildings 3 stories and higher, going really hard at them, big assessments, right? But the trickle down will come, right? Because it's revenue to the state. You know, as soon as they know that they can put more requirements on an HOA, it's more revenue to them, right? So we have to be cautious, but I think we're in good shape. We're in good shape.
Already looked at it, and that's important.
Yeah.
That's the head.
Okay.
Watch it closely.
So in terms of the recap of significant events this year, I just wanted to hit a few. Another eye chart, but I'll read a few of them. You know, cash management, we are forecasted to have a negative $10,000 balance in our operating account. So think about this. You want to go buy groceries and you don't have money in the account. We're forecasting right now, but this is before we do that transfer of 27,000, right? We also have a couple of accounts receivables that are coming to the point where we had worked with our lawyers. One was in foreclosure, and it's $14,000. It looks very possible that we'll collect that very soon. We had 3 accounts receivable out of our total balance that represented over 24,000. They all look like they're coming close to being able to be collected. So with a little bit of luck, we're going to make those collections happen. We do this transfer of the cash, and then we do have our maintenance increase starting 1/1. So between those, we'll be able to turn this, back to a positive by the end of the year. Last year we did and we purposely did this when we had that surprise increase in our insurance. What we said is, instead of passing the whole $150,000 increase in the one-time assessment to all the residents, we said, hey, let's see what we can pay out of our operating accounts. So we minimized the amount of the assessment last year by $75,000. We took that $75,000 out of our operating account, right? So that's why the operating account has shrunk, right? But again, the benefit went back to all the residents because you didn't have to come up with that one-time assessment fee for that 75,000. We did collect 98%. We're down to about 2% of the special assessments. We did have some people that needed to work on a payment plan, and that's fine. We're going to do what we can to help the residents out. So it went actually a little smoother than we all thought it would. We invested the CDs, generating about 27,000 in income. The insurance rates went up 38% last year. The projections for this year, initial projections that we got were that they could go up as much as 40% more. But I'm going to cover a slide in here to show you what we're doing to counter that. That's the big wild card that's going to be coming our way. Electricity rates went up 17%. So when you start to think about what we budgeted last year and what we actually hit this year, we didn't budget 17% increase in electric rates. We thought inflation, 5%, right? Not 17%. Our electric rates, our water rates up 14%. Cable rates, this we did budget for because we knew with our Blue Stream contract that after the first year it would go up 24%. And then the reserves are well funded, as Jim said, and our loan balance is $688,000. We're tracking to have it paid off in 8 years, which is super progress. Other things, we did the light pole improvements, we did the laundry room hot water heater improvements, we upgraded the electric panels, we had 2 water main improvements, we did purchase the new golf cart. These all came out of reserves. And right now we're upgrading our High Point webpage, and we'll be looking for some people to help us look at it and test it. It's looking really super good. It's very similar to what Section 3 has. It's the exact same service. And one of the benefits that I saw in it right away that I really liked is that when you submit a request to this office, it won't get lost in email hell. It won't get lost in this vacuum, right? Every time you enter one under your name, it keeps track of your tickets. And you'll be able to go in and say, where are my tickets? Who is it assigned to, right? Was it resolved, right? So for those that really want to be able to keep track of what's happening, it gives you a good way to communicate with the office and a good way to see what's happening. So we'll demo that coming up. We had 19 unit sales. Last year it was upwards of around 27 units. This year it was 19, so it was slower with the softer market. We have 1 unit that's in foreclosure that we're hoping is going to close out. We just got notice from the bank, and we're going to try to close out that $14,000 receivable. This is our AR balance, $38,500. It was about where it was last year, but 24,000 of it is in 3 accounts that are all in legal dispute, right? So there's not a lot of work that can be done on those until the unit's sold or it's foreclosed on, or we decide to foreclose on it, which wouldn't be. So the remaining 14,000, Jim's been hounding that. That's a good balance given the current financial situation of everybody. And Jim's even going to the point of knocking on doors. Our legal expenses, this was a question that was asked of me of what are our lawyers doing for us. We had legal expenses this year of $2,100 year to date. That's all associated with the 3 accounts that are $24,000. Every time they pick up their phone, pick up their pen, it's $150 an hour. That's just the way they work, right? We are interviewing new lawyers, and we will move from our current lawyer to a new lawyer. So our current lawyer is Miami-based. We're trying to find a lawyer that's local to Delray, Boca, this area, and it works with HOAs. The budget assumptions. Now we're going to move into the budget assumptions. I got to just ask one question. Did we propose and approve the movement of the interest?
Yes.
We did, okay. Okay, budget assumptions. Okay, so we don't receive our insurance pricing until the January timeframe, right? We set our budget now. And so last year when we did, we worked with Plastridge, our broker, and they said 400,000 should do it. It came in at 550. And it came in, and last year we talked about why it went up so much. But the point being is that, you know, it was a big miss, and then we had to do the assessment, right? This year, and it was 38% over what we budgeted. Now, and we did a special assessment. Now, what we decided to do for our budget is, in our budget for 2024, we budgeted flat to the 550,000. And the reason we did that, and I have a slide on it, and I'll go through what we're doing and why we think that that's a good baseline to start with, right? Very high probability that it's going to come in above 550,000. But to what degree, at this point, I don't know. We don't know. And we've talked to a number of brokers, and we've talked to the other section presidents to figure out what they're doing. And I'll be able to go through a couple of numbers with the other sections are doing. The rest of this, I think you see, we actually did go out and bid all of our contracts. So between our lawn maintenance and our fertilization, and white fly spraying, we've saved over $34,000. So we were able to reduce that. Go ahead.
Can I just ask a question? Why do we pay for lawn fertilization when our lawns always look horrible?
So,
Why are we paying somebody?
okay, so I can tell you one thing. Number one is we didn't do it for the first half of last year because we had it in the KMR contract, and they never billed us for it. So we got Gold Turf going about in the June timeframe, which was well after the time that the weeds set their seeds, right? Now, if you compare our lawns to Section 3, just walk down our road, look right, look left, you're going to see a remarkable difference in lawns. Our lawns are in good shape. Compare them to every other section. I walk this place every single day when I'm here. And our lawns, even though they still have a lot of weeds in them, are far better. And I can tell you, you want to lose a lawn, look at Section 3, right? They've lost their lawns. It's 100% weed patch. So again, the cost of it, and we have a new vendor coming in, so it's a good question, right? And again,
Is there money back from the old vendor? Because they certainly didn't do a good job.
well, I think it came down to the timing of the spray. We didn't follow up early enough with KMR in the spring. You have to get this done in the January timeframe. The pre-emergent and the sprays got to hit as soon as those seedlings are starting. Once those seedlings get going hard, it goes beyond that control. It's just like the whitefly. If you don't spray for whitefly just when they start, they'll destroy the thing. So it's a good question though, and it's good feedback, and we'll make sure that we address it in the minutes, and we'll make sure we follow up on it.
You see that big field back of me, you know what it looks like.
Yeah, well, that's a tough one because that's one that went with the drought, right? And a combination of that and the other. And the problem is there is no grass back there, right? And so that's a good question. So let's put it on the record that we'll look at that field and see what we can do. We don't have enough money in the world to returf
I
that.
don't think you should do anything right now
Right.
because it can look like dirt right now with the increase in my budget. I don't want it to increase anymore.
Okay, good call. Thank you.
That's 24-hour sun. I mean, that's sun
Oh,
all
but-
day long,
yeah,
that
right,
area,
right, right.
Murray. And that's got very little water in it too, so
You
it's
don't-
a very expensive situation.
Okay, so let's keep going. But if people have questions like that, I did notice that some people are starting to take care of their own yards. I did notice over on the back by the things they decided to kill off the grass and the weeds, and they're going to replant their own, which I'm like, wow, okay, crazy. But again, some people don't care about the lawns, and other people really do, right?
Right.
So this is one of those balance things that we got to keep.
In the 20 years I'm here, Marie, and not every area has, like you said, the lawns look good all over. But in the 20 years that I live here, I think this is the best the lawns ever looked in the 20 years. And like Ron does, I walk all around the neighborhood for exercise every day, and I notice.
Yeah. You walk too, though. Okay, so what are we doing to get more competitive insurance rates? Okay, so we've actually talked to a number of brokers, and we've landed on a broker called Heritage. Now Heritage represents Section 3 and Section 1. And both Vito and Laura are overly confident that these guys are the best in the area for this. And so I'll give you, I have my own eye chart here, I don't have my glasses.
Those are readers.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so I just want to give you an idea of Section 1, their premium is 500,000 for last year. Ours is 550. Section 3, 450,000. Ours is 550. Ours is 550. Section 6 is 600,000. Section 5 is 600,000, and Section 6 is 630,000. Okay, so when you sit here and say what's going on with our section compared to other sections, we're right in the middle. I'm not saying that we're in a good spot, but we're right in the middle. Now, why is Section 3 so competitive? Now I'm going to go through on this slide. The broker has recommended a number of things that we need to look into. First is adding clips, retrofitting and adding clips to roofs. So you have either a peel and stick roof, which gives you a credit on your insurance, or you have clips where they toenail them and you put a clip. And they can retrofit a building for roughly $800. With all the clipped units, they have all clips, they save $100,000 on their insurance just with that credit, right? So what they recommended to us is and only 4 of our buildings have clips. Go ahead.
Clips on what?
What it is, you know when you put a roof in and you put a toenail in, you put a nail through the shingle, goes through the roof, in the attic, they put a clip. And it basically makes it so that it can't pull the thing out when the winds hit it, right?
Each shingle?
Yeah, each shingle has multiple. They don't clip every single nail. They clip, every third nail but they clip enough where it creates this hole. Now, if it can get us a 20% discount on our insurance, it may be worth us making an investment and doing a retro because we have 16 years left on our roofs. So we have to look into this. We have to kind of take a look at it. Question? No? Okay.
Yeah, Ron, aren't they talking about clips on the truss end?
Yeah.
On the truss, it's not on the shingles, right?
No, I think it's on shingles.
It's on the shingles, I
Tying
think.
the truss.
It's the shingles. It's not
The shingles, yeah.
It's the shingles. Yeah, it is the shingles. It's the shingles. But anyways, we're going to go through more detail on that. They recommended it. We've already reached out to Atlas Roofing to ask them what they recommend. We also have to know whether or not we have 30-pound shingles or not. If we have 30-pound shingles, that's also worth some credit money to us. We have to get updated wind mitigation reports. They have to be updated every 5 years, right? And when they took our wind mitigation reports, it's missing. They're missing a lot of information, and so they said they're incomplete. So they don't have permit numbers on them. There's a bunch of information that's missing, and for us to get insurance through Citizens, which is who we're going to target to move to, right, from our current carrier, we're going to move to Citizens, which will bring us a much better rate. That's what Section 1 has, and Section 3 has Citizens. We're going to, so this is another one they brought up. Our previous broker did not, and I'll get to you in a second, did not bring up the fact that because of our roof geometry, like I'm learning more about roofs than I ever want to know. Because of our hip roofs, we're worth another credit. We've never claimed a credit on our roofs from our previous broker for what they call the geometry, right? So again, another way for us to potentially keep this increase down lower. There's a thing called difference in coverages clause. So we'll explain it when we get to the point of whether or not we decide to eliminate it. Section 3 eliminated, Section 1, Laura said they're going to eliminate it this year. It saves about 45 grand in your insurance. And what it basically is that your property policy doesn't cover for flood, right? And so if you have a unit that has a broken pipe and it actually floods more than one unit, this difference in coverage clause picks that up. But they said the probable maximum loss in any one of these units that you would see would be under 10 grand, which would be at a deductible level, meaning you're replacing a few sheets of sheetrock. You're not, so they say it's like a risk. It's a calculated risk. Do we think, if we have it, do we pay for it? So we have to evaluate that as to whether or not that's going to be worth it. But again, when we get closer to our proposal, that's one thing we'll look at. We're going to move to Citizens for sure. And they even said, Franklin said, if you had moved there 2 years ago, you'd be in a really good spot right now, right? The electrical inspection, we are going to be required to go through electrical inspection. In Plastridge, that's one thing in American Coastal, we did not have to go through electrical inspection. So they're going to go through all our laundry rooms, and they're going to tell us that our panels, which are no longer compliant, are going to have to be upgraded. So, well, I don't think it's going to be the individual. I think it's going to be only the HOA, right?
So they're not making the individuals up?
They may not. It may just be, because again, it's the building insurance, it's not the homeowners, right? Good question, and we're going to find out. So this could be a real wild card for us. Now, Section 3 upgraded all of theirs, 100%. So, Vito and the board over there made some pretty good decisions that have been able to keep their insurance down, right? But again, we're going to have to figure it out. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get insurance. We just have to have it, and if we have anything that's defective, meaning that it needs to be replaced, we'll have to fix it before they'll insure us. And then we did get a revised property assessment during the last few months. We were told that we could go ahead and get a revision, and they came in 10% lower than the 40% increase that we got last year. So again, that'll help us decrease the cost of our insurance. So you can see here's all this stuff. We did a complete roof inspection. That's done. So all these things are moving parts. We're going to have to move quickly because the policy comes due pretty quickly here. Yeah, and you had a question?
We had citizens, and they sent us a letter saying they have too many policyholders. They need to get rid of 2.7 million. They have like 40 million.
Yep.
And you have your choice to go to another company, or you could stay with us if it's within 20% of what we're charging.
Yep.
Now, I asked another church, but they have so many people they're insuring, if something happens, they can't pay everybody. So that's why they're dumping around 3 million customers. So are we going to that company?
Yeah, and again, the financial stability of Citizens actually is very strong. And so we can go through it with a broker, and when they present, one of the things that they're trying to do is they're trying to move snowbirds off their books.
Okay.
That's what they're doing. They're going through a methodical approach. If you don't live here full time, right, they want to save the insurance pool, which is Citizens is an a state-run insurance pool.
Correct, yeah.
Right? They want to have it for residents. So again, great question, right? And I think we have to make sure as we're going through this next few weeks, these discussions, that we're considering all that stuff. Because if they become insolvent and there's a massive hurricane through here, we'll be on the state list, right?
How do you update the litigation? Is that a legality, like you go through legal?
They basically have a company that makes a lot of money. They come in, they update the paperwork and, stamp it and go through. Now, the guys that did our inspections, they came in with a drone and they went to every building, they took pictures and, they went through everything. But it's, again, I think it's another money-making,
Well, does the insurance company do it?
No, there's companies that do it.
Private contract,
That's what they do.
they hire from
Yeah.
the outside.
Yeah. If there's anybody on the phone or in this room that want to, be involved in talking about the insurance renewal, we welcome the help, right? Again, we got to, keep our heads together. That's why we hire a broker. You'd like to help?
No, I would like to know that. Good. At what point, and I know it's further down the road, do you think we can become self-insured?
Nope.
So let's just put it, a total loss, a total loss to this facility, meaning we get a runaway train through this place, $4.8 million.
Okay, so that's every building being destroyed?
Yeah.
And so, as the 52 years they're alive here, has any building been destroyed? They don't
No,
have-
no, and that's, again, that's what the insurance companies do, right? They're sitting there going, and that's, again, when people do
And these are cinder block buildings.
Yeah.
I can see the roof being blown off, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, 4.8 million, I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, at some point, you guys gotta think, we're paying $2 million for insurance, and to fix things, it's only $1 million, so what are we
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
here?
Well,
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
at one point, if it keeps going up and up.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta say, we gotta.
Yeah, I would say to you that right now at 550, even 650,000, as a board member, I would not recommend that we go.
Right, but if it's $1.3 million.
Oh, yeah, it
well,
becomes a whole
I think
nother
lot of
thing,
people are
right?
thinking about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, but that's another good question. You're on the committee.
There you go. You brought it up, it's your idea now.
Okay, in terms of reserves, we already covered the reserves, but basically, this is the chart that if you wanted to go back and test what Jim said, our roofing, we have 16 years left, right? And the current replacement cost is 1.7 million. This is what we have in our fund balance as of the end of this year, and how much we're gonna fund it for next year. So we do a calculation every year of what we need to be funding these two, right? Yes.
I have one question about roofing, because there are 16 buildings in here that were done, Joe, a year or 2 years before the rest of the buildings?
That part, I don't recall, I think that was done when Jan was president.
Jan was president,
Yeah.
and,
16.
Why
there
were
was
they done
16, it
early?
was all of the buildings on High Point Boulevard, one building on South Drive, Circle Drive Terrace,
Okay, I remember,
and then,
I remember it was done.
895 on North Drive. They were the 16.
That was hurricane damage.
No, I think it was,
We had to do those 16 first, because those were the ones that
they
were.
were showing the,
Before the
yeah.
So what's your
Yeah, I
question?
was gonna say,
We have 16 years left. Do they have 15 and a half years left or 14 years left? Because they were done a complete year.
Okay, so good question. We'll take that question down and make sure that we go through and do that inventory. I was going through the roofing file the other day, and it's a bunch of paper, right? And trying to figure it all out. So we'll get that organized and we'll figure that out. And also when they do these inspections, again, I'm gonna rely on the documentation that these stamps say, right? So if the guy goes through and says, all done 16,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying?
I'll wait for that one.
I
Right?
think those roofs were in particularly bad, state, right? And
No,
that-
it was that Jan had decided that they were going, if you remember correctly, she decided as president, they were going to do the roofs in 16 buildings at a time.
Mhm.
That was her call, that's what happened at the time. And then Irma hit.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a choice, we had to have the roofs replaced.
Yeah, okay.
So that's how that happened.
Okay, so that's good. I'm gonna just keep moving because I wanted to try to keep it to an hour, but it's gonna be over a little bit. The budget for 2024, which is the topic that, a lot of people want to hear. So our revenue, our forecast for this year is 1.3 million. Our budget was 1.3 million, so what we forecasted, we earned, which means we did have administrative income from selling units and other income that came in, but it's mostly driven by the maintenance fees. Our budget for next year is 1.4 million, and the growth will be 11%. The insurance, our full year forecast is 552,000. Our 23 budget was 400,000. Our full year 24 budget right now is 552,000. So this is the one number that I just want everybody to go on record is the one that is likely to go up, and we're working with Heritage to minimize that increase. The maintenance fees have gone down by 22%. We renegotiated contracts, so that comes right back to us. Utilities are going to go up by 7%. So there's gonna be some growth because of inflation. And then the other expenses, and I have a chart for the others, so you can, I added that because people ask me, okay, so what's in that other? It's a big number, so I added a chart that you'll be able to see in that. So at the end of the year, the loss in from a budget perspective was driven by the fact that our insurance went up by 150,000 is essentially what drove that, along with the increase in utilities and water expense, right? So all that, gave us a really tough year, and we had to eat into our operating cash to cover that. We have a really tight budget for next year. Just there's no doubt about it. And as long as we continue to use our reserves for anything that's over 500 that is a long-term improvement, we should be able to, work through the year like we did this year. The other expenses, our reserve fees makes up 126,000. That's money that's going back into your reserves, by the way. So that's not like it's an expense. It's being collected, but it's going into the reserves. Our loan payments, 95,000. We have the office expense, we have legal, taxes, and then we have a number of what we call City of Delray taxes and fees. So when they come in and tax us on our backflow pumps, that was $5,000. There's a number of these fees that come in. We have pest control. Now, we put 20,000 in the budget. This year we had 20,000 in it. We only spent 6 this year. But the minute you have to tent the building, it's almost $6,000, right? So this is a hit or miss thing. If we get an infestation of termites, we end up with a difficult situation. We could eat that 20,000 up really, really fast, right? So 20 is in there for if we have that. Every year we have hurricane tree trimming, 11,000. I did look at what the other units are doing in this area, and I can tell you that they're spending a lot more on their tree trimming than we are, by multiples of thousands. So not KMR, but Zimmerman has been very good to us. And then that's it. Reserve study is going to cost us about $4,000 if we do it, and that's where they update what our reserve should be when we should be making the improvements. Everybody got this as well. The maintenance fee for 2023 for a 1-bedroom was $408, for a 2-bedroom was $458. With our increase this year, 1-bedroom is $470, a 2-bedroom is $528. And 85% of that increase is attributed to insurance, maintenance, utilities, and reserves. So if you think about what really drove that increase, you can see that where that increase was driven by. So you're paying for a 1-bedroom unit, you're paying $182 for insurance, $208 for insurance for a 2-bedroom. Is kind of the way to look at it.
I got a quick question, Ryan.
Sure.
I've been here 20 years, I never really knew how you actually figure the difference between the 1 and 2-bedroom.
Oh, it's a percentage allocation.
Well, I realize it's a
Yeah.
percentage.
Yeah.
It seems like
Square foot,
it's different, and now instead of 50, it's at 58. And every year it seems like they drift apart.
Well, the percentage is the same. It's 46.6 for a 1-bedroom and 53.4 for the other. It's
Based
been,
on square footage?
be honest with you.
1 bedroom's 900 and 2 bedrooms is 1,100.
Okay.
Based on
That's the
Thank you for
difference
answering
in
that.
square footage.
Okay, so that's another question, but we'll confirm it and we'll make sure we put it in the minutes. That's a good question. Yes?
We have the reserve of 900,000, is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What's our goal?
So our goal is to be able to, when it comes time to replace the roofs, have enough money to replace the roofs, right?
So we're looking at 1.7 or 2 million probably by then, right? Instead of 15 years?
Yeah, 1.7 million is what we're looking for.
So that's what we're putting money away for, that's our.
Correct. But now think about the reserves, they go up and down. Like, so for example, we may start parking lot improvements a year from now, right? And then that'll shrink, right? we may replace all the electric panels in the laundry rooms, and that will go down a bit.
And then the laundry
Right.
doors is,
But do we have to keep something, the state, do you have to keep so much in there?
The state only requires us at this point, 718, that we put 10% of what we collect from you into our reserves.
So some of the other sections have a lot less.
They do, and
How do they operate?
well, again, they operate through assessments. Anytime they have to do something, they come back to the residents and say, you gotta pay a special assessment for this.
And that law just changed in 2024 now, hasn't it? As of 2024, don't condos have to put in 10%? They're no longer allowing condo associations to say, no, we're not gonna put anything in.
Yeah, 10% is what's required,
Yes,
and
and they can't now. Before they used to be able to defer it.
Yeah.
Now, as of 2024, from what I've been reading, they're no longer allowed to defer that 10%. So they're all gonna have to be putting that 10% in.
correct. Now, the one thing is that if you're over 3 stories or higher condo associations, you have to be fully reserved, right? That's a new law, so that's why you're seeing assessments like 50 grand, 60 grand being assessed, because a lot of these places fell way behind on their assessments, right? But because we're a single story, we're right now flying under the, you know, and we're in good shape, by the way. I can tell you that,
7 years to pay.
in terms of total reserves, I know section 1 is roughly $1 million. Section 3 is 905.
They're all saving for something.
Section 4 is
well, you
260.
could say saving, or they have to have enough money in case something
Section
happens.
5 is 400. And I can tell you that when I read the minutes of one of the other, and I wanted to bring them so I could just read the minutes of one of the other sections, anonymous, they're a hurting unit. Let me tell you, it's like when I read it, I'm like sitting there going, I'm glad we're not there, right?
So 5 years ago, we borrowed 1.7 million.
Yeah.
Were we hurting then?
What's that?
Were we hurting then?
I would say we probably were if we had to borrow 1.5 million.
Right, okay.
And I know that the board up until, like, I know when Joe was there and Jim were here, they brought this place around to being financially sound. I mean, they definitely did, right?
Yeah,
And,
they went to 600, right.
right. So we just can't screw that up.
Oh, I agree. We're asking to stay 10 more years.
Yeah. So again,
Let's make a deal.
the risks are the same as they were last year, but I just want to make sure we all know insurance is the biggest risk. It's going to be the biggest wild card, and we have an aging infrastructure, right? And we do know our water lines, underground water lines, are really starting to break, and they're starting to be
Every week we get a call, something that broke.
right.
The unexpected, which pops up every day in everybody's life, Jim.
Yeah. So anyways, right. So we got a bunch to do. I think we're making good progress. We'll just keep on working on it. So I want to propose to the board that we adopt the 2024 proposed budget.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so what I'd ask everybody here, you were like a super good audience this time. But, and the people on the phone, you were even better. We couldn't hear a word. But if you have questions, you have president@highpointsection4.com or the highpoint@yahoo.com. Please send your questions in, and what we'll do is we'll accumulate them and we'll put written answers to them, and we'll make sure we get them back to everybody, so you actually can share, everybody can hear what everybody's asking.
Just one point, I just wanted to make one point, we were talking about renovating.
Hey, guys, please.
Sorry, we're talking about renovating the ladies' room,
Oh, yeah.
and I just didn't want everybody to think that that cost was coming, part of your increase in your maintenance cost, because I believe it's coming out of reserve account.
It is, yeah, it's a
correct?
reserve.
So, just so you all know, we're trying to improve that, but it's not coming out of us, that way.
And that will be a topic for the next board meeting. Oh, the next board meeting is February the 6th, and that will be our annual meeting. That's when we'll do our elections. You guys got an email blast, I think, today. And February 6th, I think. And if you want to be on the board or you want to participate, you don't even need to be on the board to be a volunteer. This guy here volunteers like he's on the board, right? So, okay, thank you, everybody.
Call for a motion to adjourn.
Oh, motion to adjourn? Thank you, Dan. All in favor? Aye. Did this thing go on mute, or did you mute it? Did you mute this? Was that muted halfway through?
I'm showing recording and voice all the way through. Showing voice recording right now. Like Susan said, she could hear it. Can you still see it?
Hi, I'm Cynthia Rennick, and I've only been here 2 months.
Oh, welcome.
I didn't get all, does this come directly to you? Is it directly at what?
They don't have any of them. It's just for the board. They don't get it for the board.
And I didn't get your
Why?
name.
You want to show your children what that looks like?
Very good.
Want to show your children?
And I'm in,
It's actually could be pulled up where
I'm over in
it was
18.
recorded
What is it?
I'm in
on television.
right over down there.